I would like to be at that bookstore, okay?
That's a beautiful bookstore.
Yeah. That's my favorite place in the whole show. Like there's not a lot of locations, I think, right? Hi, this is Juniper.
Hello, this is Elle.
And today we're going to talk about the Chinese drama Moonlight, which is a continuation from our last pod about love game in Eastern fantasy. So for anyone who listened to that, you'll know the reason we're talking about Moonlight is because we started watching this when it first came out. What is it, 2020? Around that 2021 time frame. So it's a few years. Yeah. So it's an old show, but it's the same cast basically from Moonlight. Sorry, not Moonlight, Love Game in Eastern fantasy. And I had dropped the show when it initially came out. That's Moonlight, because I couldn't stand the first 7 episodes. But Elle really liked it at the time. Knowing that about the show, and now when I was watching Love Game, I really enjoyed the CP, right? Even though the story kind of got watered down in the latter half of the show. When I started watching that show, I was like, oh, I'm going to go check out Moonlight now because I really enjoyed their interpersonal dynamic. And I was very glad I did that because there are really good things about Moonlight. Of course, there are also failings, which we will talk about. At least I think there are failings. I know, Al, you enjoyed it. So I'm going to defer to you, Al, to take the lead because I think this is one of your favorite, maybe it's not, but one of your well-liked Chinese modern dramas.
I did. I liked it. Okay, so I'll just do a quick synopsis. Basically, there's Esther Yu plays the girl named Chuli, and she wants to be an editor. Like her dream is to be an editor at a very specific publishing house, and somehow she gets in, even though she doesn't have any experience. And her job is to get this author who's very popular to sign with the publishing house. And so the first few episodes are focused on her trying to convince him to, sign with them. And then after that, obviously, spoilers, he signs with them. The continued interactions between them, and they are our main CP, and Ryan Ding plays the author. So in a nutshell, it's really about publishing in China, which I think was one of the reasons I was interested in watching it, because I actually don't know too much about how China runs, publishing. I know a lot of authors in China start with writing on online platforms, publishing in web novels. In this scenario, they treat it more like traditional publishing, like they're not scouting. Like he's already established. He comes from a literary family. His father's a writer. His best friend's a writer. His best friend's father's a writer. Everyone's a writer, right?
That's one of my things that I picked up on. I'm like, this show doesn't live outside of publishing and writing. There's something wrong with this universe.
Yes, and Esther's character, like she didn't study like publishing, like she studied finance, like because her parents were like, this is a useless industry to enter in, so she needed a degree in something that she could find a well-paying job in. So she basically is working for meager income, and that's another reason that she gets more involved with Ryan's character, because at some point she's not being paid much, but she has no place to live. Her landlady kicks her out, so he takes her in.
The cohabitation trope.
Right. So she's now his roommate / maid, cook, dog walker,
housekeeper,
yes,
assistant. Well, she's his editor and his assistant, so that's
she's everything.
The romantic sparks happen, and there's a subplot about how they're really online friends, and she doesn't know that he's her online best bud that she kind of secretly likes. So there's a whole subplot about that, and he kind of never tells her and was never going to tell her until, of course, she finds out. So it's your typical rom-com, I would say. The reason I couldn't watch it when it first came out was because I just felt it was a bit tedious, and I'm like, wow, these people, especially him, was very not well likable. Like it's the persona Ryan's character plays, right? Zhou Chuan, right, the author's name.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very prickly, narcissistic is not the right word. Egotistical, but in a righteous way. Like, he's not a bad person. He's actually a very good guy, but he has no tolerance for others and patience for others, right? It's like his way or the highway, I think.
Yeah. So there's several moments, right, where they say he has low EQ. I don't think he has low EQ. He has
no EQ. He has the EQ of a 4-year-old, especially when it comes to girls. That is very emphatically underscored in the show, which makes for a lot of the situations.
So there's a Cantonese saying, 好硬心軟. I don't know if you have that in Mandarin. It's like the words you use are harsh, but your heart is soft, right?
Yes.
So there's one scene where he's worried about her, and he texts her. He's like, "Oh, is this too nice?" And he switches it to like, "Make me chicken broth." Like, instead of like, "Oh, where are you? Come home."
He's got an image to uphold.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, this sounds more like me."
Yeah, it's stupid, right? His personal pride defines him. But I say this is we watch this and we're like, this is like the modern, people say this, right? This is like the sequel, or Love Game is the prequel, inadvertent prequel to this, because their character dynamics are very similar, at least at the beginning, right? The enemies to lovers type of, like, bicker, I hate your guts, why are you so difficult, right? Like, until they realize that they really like each other, which is very sweet to watch. But it was very hard for me to watch the initial 7 or 8 episodes because he was so difficult, and it was all just her chasing him around going, can you sign the contract? Oh, can you do this for us? Like, begging him to do this, and him being mean. I had no issues with him being mean because I knew that was the character, but I was kind of like, as a fresh audience watching it at the time, I was like, where is this going? Do I really need to spend this much of my time watching two people being unpleasant? Does that make sense? It wasn't cute to me.
So I would say, because when I first watched it, I liked it. So we were on different impressions of it. I think, wavelengths. I was thinking wavelengths. I was like,
I was on AM radio. You were on FM channels. I was on the wrong dial. Go on. Sorry.
I think I did text you. This was like 3 years ago, right? I texted you because I remember saying, like, I love the bromance in this. Like, that was actually why I continued it.
They're cute.
Like, him and his best friend, they have this relationship that cracks me up because it looked very natural on screen. Like they tolerate each other in a way where it's like nothing. It's a strong brotherhood. And even when there was another scene where Zhou Chuan said, there's like, because he equated Esther's character to his dog, and she was really mad. Like, she's like, I'm like your pet, and he explained to his best friends, like, there's only like 2 people important, like 3 people important to me: my mom, and my dog. Honor. Yeah, it's an honor. Like, she's equivalent to the number 3 in my life, right? And so I was like, oh, interesting. He said to his friend, like, you're number 2 behind my mom. So, like, I love that even though he has low EQ, he also can express who he cares about and loves. And, he's a very interesting character. Like, so yeah, when I was watching Love Game, I was like, I told you, like, oh, he's like the same character here, except, a different setup.
But he doesn't have the same bromance with the second male lead, same actor too, right? As they do in Moonlight. So I agree with you about the bromance, that they have the best dynamic in the whole show. Like, honestly, if you took the women out, it would still be a pretty funny show. I would
watch that.
Yeah. Right. It's not about a bromance and like make it romantic like BL, but just like they're kind of funny kids, right? Like, they complement each other because they each have weaknesses, right? Like, they call each other for basically help. Although Zhou Chuan calls what's his name? The other guy's name?
Is it Zhang? I don't remember his name. They said so. I'm remember the subtitle.
It's okay. Well, we don't want to spend 5 minutes speculating. I suppose you could just pull it up online. But anyways, so I mean, like, even when things are going well later, right?
Oh, Zhou Yuchang? Was it Zhou Yuchang?
Zhang, I think it's Zhang something. Zhang Yuchen.
Yeah.
Zhang Yuchen.
Yeah.
That's right. So, when I remember later, very towards the end, when they're trying to propose to their respective lady friends, right? They're like, how should you propose? How should I propose? And they're like Googling or researching online. And then that's a stupid idea. Like, why would you ever do that? Like, I thought that was cute, right? Like, so
Mhm.
those are the moments, and then the actual romance between the main CP I thought was very cute when it was working. The problem is, for me, the bookends of the show doesn't work. I really enjoyed the middle, especially as watching it. I was watching it, I think I mentioned it on our last pod, as a companion piece, right, to Love Gaming Eastern
Mhm.
Fantasy, because it almost made up for the missing main CP dynamics from
Yeah.
Love Game, right? Love Game
Mhm.
kind of just forgot about its main CP after like the midway point. And you're like, what happened to the people I really enjoyed and their storyline? So
Mhm.
just imagine it's the same characters in the modern world. They've exited the book. Now they're bickering in the real life scenario and falling in love, right? And it's a
Mhm.
very cute and they're very affectionate,
Yes.
right?
Yes. There's a lot of
In
kissing. Not a lot,
I don't
but
know if
like
there's
more
a
than
lot.
usual. More
Yeah,
than
but
usual.
when
More
it's
yeah.
not just like what's a dead fish kiss, all the time, right? It's like natural progression from I don't know you that well, or should we even be kissing or drunken kissing to now we're a couple, right?
Yeah.
So I like that. It's just that I felt like the story spent so much time about publishing. It's like the author, or I don't know if it's based on a book or not, but the script,
It
whoever the
is.
story, okay.
It's
I don't
yeah.
know if what the book was like. Maybe you read the book, but I'm like, did someone just get like a they had to fulfill a KPI. The KPI or
Yeah.
objective was go write a story that centers around writing and publishing, but put some romance in it. Okay, right? Everything is
Yeah.
about publishing and
Right.
writing. And I think I texted you or said to you offline, hey, I feel like there would be no romance between these people if they didn't all have professional hurdles constantly of every flavor possible that's related
Mhm.
to writing and publishing that they could help each other overcome.
Right. Right. Okay, yeah, so it is based on a book, and I read it a long time ago. I don't know if I finished it because I think that chapters weren't all translated. But the female lead in the book was really spunky. Like, and I think the book started with a lot of her texts with Mr. Fox, the
Yeah,
online
Hu Jing, the
persona.
online
Yeah,
persona, yes.
yeah. And she drops like curse words, F bombs. Like she's very crass online because she doesn't,
Yeah.
because it's like she's anonymous, right? So she's like her true
Mm-hmm.
self. And then she's very polite in person. But like you actually hear a lot of her head. Like she's cursing, Lao Miao and, the deputy
Ugh,
editor.
the
She,
cardboard
like,
villain.
yeah, yeah. So like in this drama, it's all like pleasant, but in the book, she's like she's mad, and you hear her anger all the time. So it's a different character. I think they definitely made her sweeter in the drama. In terms of the publishing, I was telling you offline, like. I see this very commonly in TVB dramas from Hong Kong. Like they'll say, "Oh, here's a whole drama about airport," and then every character works at the airport. Or here's a drama about hospital, and every character works in the hospital. So for me, it
Fine.
wasn't that. Yeah, it's fine. I think it's not as jarring. I think for them, maybe this was a new thing too, because like I said, I don't think there are many stories about how a publishing house works, and I feel like they were trying to like teach you. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like it's a given of how publishing works. Like I feel like a lot of it is like spoon fed. Like
But
here are some things that these
maybe.
these authors face, and here are
Yeah.
some challenges they have. And I feel like maybe they thought this is a good opportunity to educate people about how this industry works, because there really isn't. I mean, even in American movies, I don't see how publishing works. It's a very cloaked kind
Yeah.
of
This
industry. So
there's nothing really wrong with that. I think it's a very common thing in any Asian drama, even Korean dramas, right? Wasn't there like Romance is a Bonus Book or something that's about publishing? Except that one
oh
was not
yes, yes,
publishing all the time, right? It was
that's
publishing,
true.
right? It's a
Yes.
different approach. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with making it all about this, right? Like, what did I mention? Grey's Anatomy, right? American
Mm,
shows are like that too. It's all about people in the hospital or firefighters or cops, right? That's
yeah.
fine. What it felt draggy. That's the impact of how they did it in the show was it felt draggy towards the end. Like
Yeah.
the romance again took a backseat to somehow overcoming every hurdle possible professionally, right? And I don't know if it's like just the mentality or they had to do it for cultural value, right? Like societal value. Like if you have to make, I don't know, maybe there's a mandate out there at the time that says if you're going to make a show for consumption, it can't be all fluff. It has to have societal value. Okay, let's talk about the professional aspects. Kind of like, what did I say to you offline? I said this feels almost like if you compare this to a similar type of show from China, Our Interpreter. What was that about?
Yeah.
Someone got a brief and said, let's go make a romance about people who do interpretation. And they went all heavy on the interpretation, shtick.
Yeah, the translation.
Forgot the romance, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, it's so heavy-handed. Now, Moonlight at least was not heavy-handed, but it could have veered towards that because it was just like overly indexed. Publishing every hurdle possible, and the romance becomes like an afterthought. Like I said, if these people didn't have hurdles like of a professional front to overcome, they wouldn't be together at all. Yeah. Now, you said it's the reason they cross paths. I'm like, yeah, but even after they cross paths, that's all they spend their time solving.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting though, like when I think about the characters, right? So we know we like the three actors from Love Game in this, right? We like them equally, I think.
So
right?
the male lead, the second male lead, and the female lead.
Yes, the second female lead in Moonlight is a very weak character for me. She's actually quite. She's cold. She's cold. She's actually probably a very complex character, but she doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. I feel like she's almost like a misplaced character, like because
he's too adult for this situation. That
yes,
right?
Yes.
I'm like, honestly, I almost was like, why are you with Zhang Yuchen at the end? Because honestly, I don't see them fitting. Because so at first I thought she was very unlikable. Because she's aloof and cold. Like they had broken up, right? You start the story with the second pair already having had a misunderstanding, or maybe it's not a misunderstanding. He felt she betrayed him. She doesn't explain herself. They break up. They somehow cross paths and get back together because he never really got over her, and really she didn't get over him, right?
Right.
But then when they almost get back together, some other misunderstanding happens, and they kind of almost got torn asunder. Honestly, how they ended up together, because that was not explained to. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I was like, so how did they overcome that? Because like it feels like they're just. He's always asking for another chance, even though he's the one who keeps breaking up with her because of lack of trust. Yes. So I was like, dude, after the first time, maybe, but after the second time, if I were her, I'd be like, I don't know. And she even says that. I don't know, man. Trust. If you don't have trust as a foundation, I don't see how this relationship could work. I'm like, yes, that's actually true. There's no guaranteeing there won't be a third or fourth or fifth time because he's so immature in that sense.
Yeah.
As a character, she's cold, right? And she doesn't, what does it say in Chinese? 不长嘴. She doesn't have a mouth, meaning she doesn't explain herself.
Yeah.
But he's not exactly good at listening or wanting to hear an explanation. He jumps to conclusions.
Yeah.
It just takes one trigger to make him think she betrayed him. So why are they together?
Right. That was one of the problems I had watching Moonlight. Like the first CP, they're like they're different people, but they work, right? The second CP felt very forced to me, and I felt like he could do better considering quote quote his supposed like popularity and like
he could do better too, honestly.
They can both do better because they're both successful in their own rights, right? They're the more mature versions of the main CP, right? Like they're further along in their careers doing the same things, right? She's also an editor and he's also a writer. I feel like they were just basically together due to nostalgia, right? Like, oh, there's this romanticism.
And because the plot says they should be together.
Yes, that's true. But like, of how we met because we both love the same book and we worked to get, like, she helped him become the initial success that he was. And so they're holding on to that. But it's like, but if you're not, like you said, if there's no trust anymore, if like, he's worried about this and she's worried about that, like they're just better off staying away. Yeah. Like just hold on to the memories and be done with it,
Exactly. Like they never really explained how they overcame that. It's just like, give me another chance. Oh, okay, based on my warm and fluffy nostalgia for you, let's get back together. I feel like that's how it happened. And I was like, look, I have nothing against them. They're very nice looking people. They match each other well. When they're cute, they have adult rom-com vibes very well. Like, I think there was time when she went to go return that coat he gave her, and he opened the door like half naked, and she's like, "Oh, do you right?" Like, actually, that was very surprising. I was like, "Oh, he's actually really muscular."
No, I told you he's handsome, but I don't know.
He is handsome, but in the
never had a
Dodo
male.
way.
Yeah, he's never had a male lead role. I've only seen him in supporting roles.
Yeah, so like in those, I mean, like you said, they don't belong in this type. She doesn't belong, right? If you want her as a character to work in a romantic situation, give them in a different rom-com. Make it like an adult rom-com, right?
Yeah.
Not like, I don't know, playing second fiddle.
It's funny. Another thing I observed, and because I love like looking at visuals and aesthetics, like the whole color tone of this whole drama, it's very neutral, right? Everyone's in neutrals. Everyone look like people in the office are dressed in neutrals. Everything's neutral. The palette is very neutral. And the second female lead, she's the only one to me who breaks it. She has the bright red lipstick. She has the bright red car. Like it's actually like, if you want to like disseminate this, like she's the only one that doesn't fit in this puzzle.
You mean dissect?
Like, dissect? What did I say? Disseminate? Yeah, dissect. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, so if you look at the whole palette of the whole drama, she's the only one that feels like she doesn't belong. Like she's too bright for this land, if you will, right?
Yes.
Like everyone's like this tone, neutral, beige, sand tones, wood tones, and she's like the flash of color that kind of comes in and comes out. So yeah, I it's funny because we said that like for Love Game, right? Because they have a different second female lead, and then it's like, oh, if they ever do a third collaboration, they might have to replace that third. Yes, the second
that's the rotating lead. Chair in the quartet. Anyways, we just spent a lot of time talking about the second CP because I guess what does that say about the show? So I mean, what would you say about the main characters other than they're like little kids? It's cute. They're cute, but honestly, 36 episodes of this was too much. The bookends, like I said, don't work. The middle is good.
They're cute. When I look back, right, they were age appropriate to play these characters as well, which I appreciated. They were actually the ages of the characters, and I feel like because they were so young and so new to love, you can buy that. Like you can almost say, oh yeah, that's what early love would kind of look like. Without experience.
I don't know. So immature, but maybe it's because they're very much more conservative in China, so it's normal to just, like I said, in one of our earliest pods, I said it jokingly, but it's sort of half truth, that people could spend like a year holding hands, and then you move to like half base, right? It's not even first base; it's like half base.
It's true, but also, like I said, in Moonlight, they had a lot more physical, like, interactions than I feel I've seen in other dramas where they're in a relationship. You feel like, oh yeah, they do kind of, like, affectionately like each other, right? There's no, like... So I feel like they did that well. The second CP, I think we talked about it more extensively because there was something wrong with it, to be honest. It's not because we liked them and wished that they would work.
Dislike them. It
didn't work. I don't think it worked. I think, like you said, it's forced by the plot or scriptwriter. The other things that we didn't talk about, which are all the other characters, right? Like the publishing house. Like when I watched it, I was like, is this how it works in China? Like the hierarchy?
Yes, I think so. But it's very uncomfortable to watch, right? Like, that was another reason that makes me want to abandon show early on, because of the cardboard villains. Except, are they really that cardboard? Because they are really that. It's not even a Chinese thing. There are a lot of sleazy people in the world. I guess I never realized how sleazy people could be in the real world. So blatantly sleazy, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Like, you could be backstabbing, but in your face, front stabbing sleazy? Like...
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
It was like
right,
blatant,
that's what I mean by cardboard villains.
Yeah, because the deputy editor, who's Chuli's like direct boss, like he does not mince words. Like he will like insult you to your face, but kind of pretend he's giving you advice, and it's very hard to watch because you feel so wronged for her, and he's always getting in the way, taking credit, or like. And then he's like trying to like scheme with the circulation department head, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, how much power do they wield? And I guess a lot, because like again, I don't know the publishing world in China, so it's kind of interesting where
you don't know how realistic this is. Remember,
that's true. But like to say the editorial department is not as important as circulation to me was like ridiculous. And
I see that, right? Sales. It's about marketing and sales versus the bookish people. But anyways, we don't know either way. Yeah. But it just feels like heavy-handed villainy. And it tonally, I guess, if you want to talk about having a villain for publishing themed show, sure, you did that. You fulfilled the brief. From an enjoyment factor, it really tanks the enjoyment factor by a whole peg, right? Because I just want to skip when these people show up. You're just like, oh no, not them again. It's very uncomfortable to watch. And I thought I was trying to watch a warm and fluffy, cute romance, right? I want my conflicts to come from the romance, not from all of the uncomfortable conflicts from these cardboard villains, from father figures and mother figures, like parents. The parents are as usual villains, right? And you're like, what does it say about society or Chinese society? Like, what is wrong with these people?
But it's not the first time the parents are portrayed in this type of caricature, and I'm like I said, I wonder.
That's what I'm saying. It's a
like
theme.
The blind, like the song Tai, the blind dates. I'm like, the arranged marriage. No, they don't call it arranged marriages, but like blind dates. I'm like, I think that's definitely a thing. I've seen it pop up so many times.
That's not what I'm saying when I say the parents of it. Like the author, right? Zhou Chuan, the male lead's father is just an ass, right? And then suddenly they reconcile because he wants his. I'm like, okay, I get that's actually a real caricature of a real type of Asian father or mother, but still doesn't make it. Why would you put this on screen? Like, why do I have to enjoy watching this? Right? This person needs psychiatric help. Do I have to watch this in my rom-coms?
To give people hope.
And then her mom is too annoying as heck, right? Because she didn't want her moving to Shanghai and doing her career. She's like henpecking the shit out of her husband and her daughter. And I was like, again, how are you really a good mother? But this is the Asian love that I don't need to see.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just stop watching Asian dramas for a while, because if it's a true reflection of society, then I have problems, right, with the culture. Yeah. I mean, this is my culture, and I know that it could happen. It doesn't mean I have to watch it, right? It's not enjoyable. And if it's not a realistic reflection of how society is, then why is it on TV?
Right. Well, they have to have conflict, because otherwise, how can you drag this out for 36 episodes? It's even longer than Love Game. Love Game was 32.
Could have been 20 episodes, 24, okay? That would have been the perfect length. But no, let's fill it with and then there was like another paper villain, the actress. I was like, oh my god, they really reached for that trope. They really reached for that trope, right? the childhood classmate who was the ugly duckling that the male lead defended, and now she wants him to like her, and she's obsessed and is now a pretty duckling. I'm like, whoa, are we in a different story? Did they just like Frankenstitch this together?
Yeah. I think when they do stuff like that, it works fine if it's a real soap opera where it's gonna be 100 episodes and you need the
if you're watching The Bold and the Beautiful, One Life to Live, right? Because it has there's no finiteness to it, and you just have to keep changing and do musical chairs for the CPs, but not for a finite show.
Or you do it like what they call red herring, right? You introduce that early in the plot where there's like this actress or whatever, and then you bring her in later. Like you mention her early. If you bring her in later, then it's like
in My Boss. Like My Boss. They mention the villainess. So so-called villainess pretty early on. She does rear her head, but in a professional capacity, not directly in the core of the show until much later when she joins the firm. That's a much more natural segue, I think, is what you're saying.
Yes.
She's still
so
hateful.
Yeah, but you saw her coming, or you were like, when is she coming? Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
it didn't feel as much of a reach. So, anyways.
Yeah, so I would say I think we also talked about how like for you this was like a balm, like watching Moonlight after Love Game was like a balm, like for the so for the CP interactions.
Yeah, for the characters that lived on in my head from Love Game, right? I love the characters, not so much how they executed the story at the end.
Yeah. And I said that it's also a balm for me too, from watching Moonlight, to see the second male lead have like a nicer second female lead to be with.
For you, though, it was the other way around. Love Game was the bomb for the second male lead, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Yes.
Yeah. Like he's like, oh, he finally found like a nice woman who treats him well, and not like you know.
Actually, I don't. Yes, but they didn't really wrap that up very tightly in Love Game. To be honest, for the second CP, it's like they forgot about them. They live. That's it. But I was gonna say, it occurs to me. I just had a thought that if you took the second CP from Moonlight out of context of Moonlight and just gave their own show and make it like a Korean melodrama, they would have been perfect.
Yes. If you didn't have the main CP sort of taken on all the romantic aspects, it's a different drama, but it could have worked because they had legitimate problems in the relationship.
Right. And they would have been draggy, but in a melodrama draggy way, which is what you expect, which is so many misunderstandings, so much baggage to come, but they obviously love each other, and there is like that both emotional, physical, complementary factor there that you want to watch. Like, they're pretty people and they dress, they would wear those costumes, like not costumes, like the styling for like a Korean melodrama very well, right?
Yeah.
And like, I would watch that.
The ginkgo leaf scene was very K-drama to me.
The ginkgo leaf scene, which one?
You know when they went back to the tree because he had like the first time like he picked up a ginkgo leaf, gave it to her, and she kept it as like a bookmark. He says, she gave it to him and said, these make good bookmarks. And then I think later on.
Oh, yes. They had a lot of flashbacks of like how it used to be and those. Yeah. So that's perfect, right? Like, like slow-mo.
Yeah, they look like
nice
K-dramas.
music.
Yeah, they look good.
Okay,
they
we should write
well.
a separate script just for them,
I don't know what happened to the actress because I don't think I've seen her in anything. Although I didn't look her up.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, you were saying like, oh, because you watched this shortly after Lost You Forever. You're like, why are all these people from Lost You Forever in this drama?
Oh, like, actor spotting. Yes, quick round of actor spotting. So Funlun, Baby Funlun was it? I think I sent you screencast. I'm like, oh, it's Baby Funlun.
Yeah, I was like, even more little baby Funlun, and then
He's
the other guy. Yeah,
he's cute in this.
I forgot he was. I mean, obviously, I didn't know who he was back then. I forgot he was in that. I was like, oh yeah.
But he had nothing to do. He was literally like a stand-in type of in the bookstore. He works at the bookstore.
Yeah. He was like the barista / book.
I would like to be at that bookstore. Okay.
That's a beautiful bookstore.
Yeah, that's my favorite place in the whole show. Like, there's not a lot of locations. I think, right? You mentioned, I think, offline that there's Zhou Chuan's apartment, which is huge.
His house.
It's a bit sterile for my tastes. I think it's more to your liking. That very modern, clean tile floors. I'll be like, oh man, I my feet would be cold. In fact, he's always worried about her feet being cold. I'm like, well, yes, sir, you have tile floors. Maybe you should heat the tiles or put some wood in or carpeting. And I like the bookstore a lot. I would like to work there. And that's it. The publishing house is like weird looking.
Yeah, it has that not industrial, like an old timey feel to it. That's why they do show the two publishing houses. They show the the Moonlight publishing house, which is more old timey, and then the new one, the Shindun Books, which is where the second female lead works. That's more polished.
Like investment bank.
Yeah, it's very corporate. Yeah. And she is very corporate. She treats publishing like it's corporate, which is why it was a problem in her relationship. with
Yes.
the second male lead. Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna say it reminds me that the Moonlight Publishing House is kind of like the publishing house in Lost Romance. Very dinky, basic,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Does have that same feel. Yeah, you're right.
Thank God Lost Romance did not dwell on publishing. They dwelled on everything else, which is great. The good stuff. Can you imagine if you had to watch Marcus Chang and what's her name?
Vivian
Oh my god,
Sung.
Vivian Sun just overcome hurdle after hurdle of publishing issues. I'd be like, oh no, that is not what I signed up for.
That's true. That is it's not the similar, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that was not believable is that despite Zhao Chuan's relationship with his dad, like, where did his money come from to buy that giant house in China? Like in I think it's Shanghai, right? They're
Because
based
he
in
was already
Shanghai.
successful, I thought.
He had one book before that.
Yeah.
This was like his second book. I mean, he was
I
still really new to
I
writing. I was
guess
like,
yeah. Do authors make a lot of money because both him and the second male lead have nice houses, right? But yet the
yeah,
other girl who was kind of now a failed author that they had to resuscitate did not live in luxury digs. So I'm like, what is it about the guys? Do they just have such huge hits, even if they're one hit wonders? Does that make
yeah.
sense?
I mean, they talked about royalties, which are actually similar to I don't know if it's similar to American publishing. They mentioned 15% is the highest amount of royalties they can offer as a publishing house. It's like high for the industry. So like if he sold a lot of books and he got 15%, I guess that's the money. That's a second male lead. Then that's what he would have had. And then actually Ryan's character had mentioned, he's like, oh, based on the number of books I sold, I can buy 10 apartments or something like that. So I was like, that's really high. Like that's like they're like multimillionaires high,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
doesn't sound realistic, but
No.
whatever. It's
No,
it's a drama.
it doesn't sound realistic to me either, but I'm not gonna question. That's why I said I'm not sure we know the reality, not reality, the realism that's being reflected. Yet they went and doubled down on the let's go all in on publishing things. That's why I was
Yeah.
like, maybe next time don't go so deep. But anyways, that's it. That's all I have to say. Maybe anything else you want to do before we go into maybe final ratings?
Oh yeah. Why don't you give your rating first?
So I know I gave Love Game a 7.5, and that was
Yeah.
a come down because of the letdown at the end. For
Mhm.
this one, I actually would say 7.5 too, because of if they're very different shows. I actually think that, like I said, you have to watch them almost together, and then the good parts of each make up for the weak parts of the other. If you
Yes.
just like cross edit the two shows together, then it'd be like an 8 something because you would get rid of all the weak parts and make it work.
Yeah. I lean towards 8.5 because I think the CP in this is stronger. Because I already watched it once, and for the purpose of this pod, I'm rewatching it, and I was like, I'm still pleasantly pleased by what I'm watching. Like I don't feel like, oh, I saw this already, I'm gonna fast forward. I was like, oh, it's actually has rewatchability, even despite it was easier to rewatch because for the cardboard villains what you're gonna get, so you can just ignore them in your psyche and just focus on the parts you like. And I was like, as a rewatch, like I said, the bromance was still to me very funny, very good, very charming. The main CP, it's a sweet sort of first love, and like you said, even with the online personas they have, that wasn't used as a gimmick to make it like create angst. If anything, it was like the anticipation of when they find out, because she was ready to kind of embrace the fact that they were the same person because she liked Mr. Fox, and then she kind of was like, oh, maybe I like him, the author, but then he's so mean to her. She's like, oh, I thought you liked me. He's like, I don't like you, and then he runs away, right, like a little boy. So when I rewatch it, I'm like, 8.5 is what I would give it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're consistent, right? Like your 8.5 here was the same as 8.5 for Love Game. I think what we're saying is they are equally good and weak in different ways, the two shows. So I gave Love Game a 7.5. So I can't give this way higher and definitely not lower. When I say this is way superior to Love Game, I can't say that. The first half of Love Game is a really good show. This I would have not ever revisited if it weren't for Love Game. So I would have dropped the show like I did years ago and just never visited. So that's what I'm saying. Like I can't give it that much. Maybe a 7.8. But again, that's implying somehow this show is noticeably superior to Love Game. Again, they're very different shows, and I think
they're very different.
Right, you're saying the same thing, which is you gave Love Game an 8.5. You're giving this not higher or lower because you can't.
Oh no, I gave Love Game 8.3.
Oh, so this is better than Love Game. Okay, got it. Yeah, so I mean they're in the ballpark or neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Considering the different genres, there's some like I said, there were a lot more plot holes issues I had with Love Game, but like you said, the first half or first third is still very funny. Like there are things that we didn't even discuss that we liked, like the whole scene where I'm switching over to Love Game, but like when Esther's character sees these like gifts that her dad shows up with, and they're basically like a refrigerator, a fan,
yeah.
And but he's like, look at this, and I paid so much money because it doesn't exist in like ancient times. And I was like, oh, this is hilarious. Like those are like the little nuggets that I think stuck with me, and I didn't love it. It's just, like I said, the female had too much amnesia for it to be enjoyable in the end.
All the really great parts were mainly front loaded.
Yes.
Right, and then it changed to like I said, they did a bait and switch midway or something and watered it down to something else, like a video game. You're like, what happened? But we already talked about that in our other podcast. So I think anything else in regards to Moonlight?
I think it was fun to rewatch it for me, and I would still recommend it. Hope people check it out.
Yeah, it's an easy watch. I would recommend it just because I gave it 7.5. It's not like I'm saying 7.5 is not a bad rating in my book. It's just not an outrageously good rating, right?
Yeah.
I think it's worth a watch. It's pleasant, especially as a companion piece to Love Game and Eastern Fantasy. And it's an easy background watch if you don't want to sit in front of it, because it is 36 episodes, right? If you don't want to sit in front of your,
I was like, I love the dog. The dog is so cute.
There are cute animals in the show, but
and the cat. There's a dog and a cat.
The cat randomly shows up, by the way.
The cat is so beautiful. I love that kind of cat. The British short hair.
But I just miss something? Suddenly there's a cat in his apartment, not the second male. I'm like, did they spend time explaining why there's a cat suddenly there, or just shows up? Because with the Mace DP, at least they talk about Urkel, right? But I feel like the animals are poorly neglected in the show, because it's like they're like just background window dressing. Right?
Yeah.
Like when it's convenient, to use them as a prop. Like, oh, Urkel needs to be walked. That's it.
I just love when she goes, oh, your little eyes. And then at one point that they had his hair in a little ponytail so you could see those little tiny eyes. I was like, oh, so cute. It's a big dog. They needed the big house to house the big dog.
I guess we could do a whole side segment on how Asian dramas use animals as props. Because even in My Boss, there was the dog situation. Comes and goes.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Like suddenly it's like the biggest thing ever in their life, and then the next thing it's like, what happened to the dog? What's happening? Like
Right. Well, on that note, that's all I have for today.
Yes. Time to go watch some holiday shows and movies, since it is almost Christmas.
Yes. Well,
all right.
Until next time.
Next time. Bye.